My friends, we found it. We found the Jolly Roger Bay UFO, solving this decades-old urban legend and lost media mystery. This is it, right here. This thing. And yeah, it's kind of underwhelming, but this is it. But in a weird way, it's kind of perfect for an early 2000s, early internet urban legend that turns out to be this. A few people reached out with suggestions and clips as to how to get this visual, and it worked. And don't worry if you didn't see the last video, I'll explain it all briefly first here. Today I want to go over what I got wrong in my first investigation on this topic, explain what went into solving it all, and pondering where this all leaves us now. But we did it, lads. We found the Jolly Roger Bay UFO.
Here we go!
So the Jolly Roger Bay UFO was something I came across listed as an urban legend in an old Reddit thread of Nintendo 64 urban legends. Three things in particular made it stand out. One, that I had never heard of it before. Two, that it was listed alongside other urban legends that I had heard about, giving it some credence or legitimacy. And three, that there was purportedly a clip of the phenomenon uploaded to YouTube sometime in 2013 or earlier, but had since become lost media. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and even though it seemed like no one had pulled this off, or investigated it much in the time since, aside from one lost media guy who made a thread about it in 2023, it certainly intrigued me deeply. Now, one thing I want to address. In the previous video, I showed this visual a few times, a cropped out purple UFO sliding across the screen as a sort of loose representation of what the Jolly Roger Bay UFO might have looked like, or at least to paint a loose picture about it. Now, this UFO texture is actually taken from Diddy Kong Racing. It's a UFO that comes down during the game's credits to cause trouble. I should have more explicitly mentioned that that is what it was. I know a few people didn't know, and I apologize for that, but that's where it came from. So yeah, the Jolly Roger Bay UFO definitely would not look like this in all likelihood, and I should have just used like clip art or like a paint drawing for this crude representation. Another thing that got brought up in that video was the idea of the UFO in Banjo-Tooie's Jolly Roger's Lagoon, and maybe there was some confusion between the two games, and I can see why that would get brought up. You know, the possibility of some 2010s era Reddit gamer just mixing up the stages, Jolly Roger Bay and Jolly Roger Lagoon. But to that, I would point out that the UFO Jiggy mission in Banjo-Tooie is very much part of the intended play of the game, and would certainly not be something that could be confused as an urban legend. But anyways, let's revisit the steps to trigger the UFO encounter, even though I did not succeed at first while following these particular steps. Go to Course 3, Jolly Roger Bay, and choose Star 1. Go underwater to the very back at the very bottom and open all the chests. Swim over to the sunken ship. By this time, the eel should be out of the ship's hole. Once the eel is gone, swim into the hole on top of the ship. Open all the treasure boxes. Wait for the water to drain. Run over to the steps, but before you get to them, slow down to a crawl or tiptoe. You should see a small UFO-like object floating in front of you. However, when you try to get to it, it will zip off erratically in a different direction, much like what a UFO would do. And that's what this footage was towards the end of the video. Me standing around as Mario and experiencing nothing. But this is where a couple of more investigative and intuitive viewers jumped in with their own experiences in trying to summon this unusual oddity. A fellow by the name of Sylveon emailed me the following. I wanted to reach out about your recent video on the Jolly Roger Bay UFO. I've known this visual quirk since I was a kid. I used to call it the Ghost. I thought this was the key to unlock Luigi, or that was left over from an unfinished multiplayer function. You were close to finding it in your video, but you missed some steps. Go to Star 1 like before. You don't need to go to the cave, just enter the ship. Open the chests to drain the water. Now here's what you missed. Position Mario so he is facing the open chests with the ramp and steps directly behind him. Now press C down to zoom out in Lakitu camera all the way out, not in Mario Cam, and finally make sure Mario is either walking, jumping, or running while touching the water. The object only appears when he moves on the water. If done correctly, you'll see a small white circular object floating in the air. These are the versions that work for me: Nintendo Switch, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, emulators using the US version, and for the original N64 I can't test it right now, but I remember it clearly working as a kid. Let me know if it works for you or if you need screenshots. So that was a pretty good lead, and certainly I will show the end result of what trying these steps looks like and what it results in. But first, here's another message I received from a fella, Noetic, who had his own experience. And better yet, he provided a video. Hey, what's up? I just watched your video about the Jolly Roger Bay UFO. Here's my screen recording of what I believe to be what was described. It seems to me that this is just the textures glitching out from the puddle that Mario makes as he stands in water. And of course, back in the early YouTube days, folk take things and make stories about them, haha. Still fun to have something like this to try. Brought me back to when I would try and unlock Luigi and all that stuff. And there it is. There's Noetic's screen recording. We can see this little silver bubble kind of just moving around here and there. That's gotta be it, the Jolly Roger Bay UFO. I also love how in this screen recording, what seems to be an emulator played on his phone, he has some kind of message waiting from Vin Diesel. Could this be the modern day equivalent of having unregistered Hypercam 2 on screen? Noetic also pinned a comment. If this is what the rumor was talking about, then it seems that the puddle texture Mario makes while in the water is just glitching out and being raised and flickering, maybe due to the ceiling above him where the entrance to this area is. Maybe it has some walkable ground up there. And well, that could be an explanation, and look, here's my experience trying it. I'm playing the Switch Online version in this recording, and yeah, I follow the steps from Sylveon. The biggest key seemed to be that see down thing. Zoom all the way out in Lakitu camera, and like that was the main thing that I had missed or not done. And then just playing around, you really get to see that there is this silver texture that kind of floats around and reacts to your movement. You know, once you really play with this for a few moments, you get a feel of how moving left or right, the UFO flies and flickers around in response to your own movement. And that's something else you notice as well that these guys pointed out, is that when you're not moving, the thing disappears. Only when you're moving, jumping, do you get to see it. And that could be why in the initial description of the steps, it was mentioned to tiptoe around. Obviously that's the slowest movement, tiptoeing and crawling. And so that's how you would kind of get the best look at it, by moving that slowly. But there's no doubt in my mind that like, this is it. And like in a very weird way, it's perfect. Is this underwhelming? Yeah, totally. It's far from some cool UFO texture, let alone a whole model or cutscene of a UFO like something from Diddy Kong Racing or Banjo-Tooie appearing in the stage. It's literally a silvery blip of a dot, basically nothing. It actually kind of reminds me of one specific video among the Pentagon declassified UAP videos, the Go Fast clip, where there's just this tiny thing speeding across the ocean, picked up by crew of the USS Theodore Roosevelt. UAP, of course, meaning unidentified aerial phenomenon rather than UFO, unidentified flying object, and that's a verbiage that's come into more common usage in the past handful of years. Certainly back in 2013 it wasn't all that common, UFO was much more widespread, but I kind of think that UAP is a better description of this thing. And yeah, like this has to be it. I presume the Lost Media YouTube video would have shown something similar to the clip shared by Noetic, just in a more pre-2013 video style. It just makes too sense for there to be anything else here. This silver blip is the Jolly Roger UFO that became some kind of urban legend all that time ago. Now look, I don't know exactly why this visual bug is doing what it's doing or why it appears here, and like I said, I caught on quickly with the initial emailer Sylveon that it only shows up when Mario is moving. I found that jumping and ground pounding is a good way to keep it in a relatively stable spot, and sometimes you actually do get glimpses where it does look a little bit like a UFO, a classic flying saucer, kind of with that outer ring and with a darker center, or maybe it's transparent. A tiny UFO. I think a lot of us were maybe expecting a larger, more interesting thing, but there you go. And maybe one of the Mario 64 experts like Pen and Koic or K's Emanuer will figure out exactly what is causing this graphical display bug, but hey, that's a bit above my pay grade as far as this stuff goes in Mario 64. And hey, that was a fun thing to ponder and shows off the power of community with the couple of thousands of people who viewed the original video chiming in and figuring it out. What else might we figure out, my friends? What other mysteries of gaming and beyond might we solve? Well, we'll have to see. So make sure to subscribe if you're not already to come along on our next adventure. Stay true, my friends. Thanks for those supporting me on the channel on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next stream, video, or fireside.